Hello, hello, hello. It is me, your Tru Heel Phenom SP3. We are back once again with another Tru Heels BTR. This one is going to be a good one. We got a good brother right here. He is the TalkSports US Editor as well as co-host of Talk Wrestling every Sunday from 9 p.m. to 10 p.m. Everyone says I am a person that likes to know his inside source on professional wrestling. This man is a source right here. So we have Alex McCarthy.
Thank you for that generous opening. Very glad to be here, man. You're a good guy, so let's talk some wrestling.
Absolutely. So before we get into anything with our interview with Alex here, Alex, tell them where they can find you online very quick before we get into our conversation.
Well, you can grab all of my interviews at talksport.com/wrestling. I've been a busy boy this week. Got 5 of them in the can, so you make your way over there and catch all that good content. Of course, my Twitter has it all, AlexM_Talksport. The interviews go on my YouTube at Alex McCarthy. I always forget that one, man. That goes on my YouTube. And, of course, I've got the radio show on TalkSport 2. You'll be able to find that on the TalkSport app for my good friends in America that maybe can't catch it live. So, man, make sure you do talk wrestling.
Absolutely. Listen to this guy. This guy has a lot of opinions. He has a lot of news for you. So he's a good brother to listen to. And this is a reminder to you to push that like button. It helps the YouTube algorithms, helps this video grow and get to other wrestling fans. And push the subscribe button for more Tru Heel Heat. So I always like to start off on the point of kind of get to know you and your connection to professional wrestling. So when did you become a professional wrestling fan?
Boy, so it was kind of like in school. So I explain this sometimes, and it's always a difference between Americans and Brits, right? Because for Brits, the TV thing as a kid was so different. So we only got Raw on a Friday night over here. So when I was like 8, 9, I started getting into it, which is like 97-ish. And, man, what a time to get involved with it. Like the Montreal Screwjob was one of the first things that I really saw. And I was like, what the hell is I had no idea what that was. But yeah, man, as I started to watch, in the UK, you get Raw and it's taped. So you get 10 p.m. on the Friday, and then SmackDown was like 11 a.m. on a Saturday morning. It was really random, but that's how we got it. And because I was so young, I didn't really think this is 5 days old or to look for spoilers. Like the internet wasn't really, you couldn't get it on your phone then. So man, it was just a different time. But I say all that to say this, it was a great time to be a wrestling fan, man. There was loads of great stars. The business was just on fire. I love, as a kid, who knew no better and just took everything at face value. I loved it so much, man. My mum was like, I was always closer to my grandparents, right? Like my gran and my granddad, they were always like big influences on my life. And in a roundabout way, they're both responsible for what I've become. Because my granddad was he was a fiercely intelligent but articulate guy. So I got a love for the vocabulary and for the words from him, but my gran was weirdly the one who kind of stuck me by wrestling. Because so when even my mum and that were like, don't let him watch it, my gran was always like, yeah, we're gonna watch it, and she would tape the pay-per-views for me and stuff, man. So without my gran, sadly she passed away not last Christmas Eve, the one before, but it was great that she got to see me get to this position, because that's so cool for me. Like my granddad didn't get really to see my career in full flow, but she did, man. So I'd say that was it, man. The Attitude Era had me hooked, and I did have some breaks as a wrestling fan. I don't know if you ever did, but I had a couple. One from 2004 to 2007, and then I picked it back up when I was at university, and then I dropped it again when I left university. Not because I wanted to, just because I didn't have cable when I kind of moved away. So I kind of. I kept up with it, if there was big stuff going down, but I didn't really watch weekly. And then 2011, I remember going to my friend's house. He had wrestling on, and it was Daniel Bryan. I had no idea who Daniel Bryan was. I wasn't into the indies. I didn't really have any kind of preconceived notion of who he was. And then I was watching him wrestle, and I was thinking, man, this guy looks so ordinary, but man, he's good. I was so impressed. I was so impressed. Like this is like pre-beard Daniel Bryan. You know, just the buzz cut.
Yeah.
He just looks like an ordinary bloke, and he was dressing circles, and I was just like, man. And then from there, I was kind of hooked, and through like him, we would pay to go to the O2 every year when they came over. They always come over once, like after Mania in May. And so in London, they would always have the Raw show. We'd always go to that. We did that like 4 or 5 years in a row until now. I get comp tickets now, so I don't have to pay anymore. You know, I've made it to the top.
Exactly.
So yeah, that's it, man. But that's the journey, really, and the fact that it really all started with my gran on Friday nights. It always makes me feel good to think of that.
Absolutely. Like my grandmother was the reason I became a professional wrestling fan, going over to her house on Saturdays and watching WWF Superstars when I was like really, really young. The Hulk Hogan Ultimate Warrior days. But it's funny that you say that Daniel Bryan brought you back, because it was years earlier. I did discover the Indies in 2006. I went to ROH Final Battle and I saw Daniel Bryan, and I 100% you said on point my thought. Like I was supposed to be cheering for Homicide, who's from New York, and I was just like amazed by Bryan Danielson, Daniel Bryan. I was like, this guy is amazing in the ring, and I was like, he wrestles like William Regal mixed with Shawn Michaels, and funny enough, yeah, that's his trainers.
Yeah, exactly.
So how did you get involved in the like writing part of like professional wrestling journalism?
Yeah, so it's a weird thing, like, and I don't want to like coin myself, like I'm not like a pioneer or anything like that, but there wasn't really someone who did this in the UK before me, if that makes sense. Like certainly to the level that I do it now, anyway. Like when, so I played sort of semi-professional football, soccer for you when I was coming up, and I always thought I'd go on to write about that. Like when you kind of realise, so you get paid to play semi-professionally. But it's like obviously the level before you become pro, and a lot of people just hang at that level. When you realise you're not going to make a living out of it, it's kind of like, oh. So I always thought if I could write about sport, that's probably the next best to playing sport. Like that's just trying to figure out my career and stuff like that. So I always aimed to write about football. And I had a hard time getting into the industry, man. When I came out of university, I kind of wallowed for like 4 years because I just didn't get any work experience, man. I did what guys do at university, man. You don't need me to explain that.
Yeah.
But I didn't do what I should have done. I got a degree, sure, but like I didn't put anything on, pad out my CV in any kind of way. And there's a million guys who've got a degree, so couldn't get in anywhere. And eventually, after 4 years, I like saved up money and went back to college, and I got like another degree, which allows you to work for newspapers and do shorthand and all stuff like that. So while I was doing that, I used their connections to get work experience, and then doors started opening. But man, it took, I'm 32 now, and I was like 26 when I got my first real gig. Wow. I think, or 27, one of them. So it took a long time, and I'd graduated from university when I was 22. So it took a while. And then my first job was as an NBA writer.
Really?
Yeah, for a company called Give Me Sport. So they had the official NBA partnership in the UK. So they needed staff writers and things like that. And as you can imagine, in the UK, I don't think there's a wide pool of good NBA writers. So basically, if you was a fan and you can write, you had a chance. And I've always been a big Lakers guy. Kobe. Man, Ray,
I think that's why we were connected. We're kindred souls, man.
Our souls are connected. I can feel it. But Kobe was my guy, man. I was in Houston when he died, by the way, and that sucked. That I was walking along to get lunch when the news broke on my phone, and you could almost feel the air coming out of everyone. Like everyone was reading. Do you know what I mean? Everyone was like reading their phone at the same time. And this is Houston. It's not like Kobe City or anything. But man, like it was just, you could tell everyone was just gutted, man. It was a day of the Rumble. It was awful. It was awful.
It really showed the impact, because I think a lot of people over the years didn't know the significance of Kobe Bryant's time in the NBA, because he had that kind of weird period in between Michael Jordan, who's the greatest of all time, and LeBron James, who's probably the most famous basketball player of all time. So it's like he's kind of in that middle point, and it kind of got shady of what his legacy was. But through his death, unfortunately, we kind of saw the impact that he had on the world.
Yeah, and I think he was gradually getting that anyway through his post-career stuff, like the projects that he'd taken on, and his love letter to basketball and stuff like that. It's just I feel shit every time I think about it. But anyway, he had made me a massive Lakers fan, and actually when I took this job on, Lakers were awful. We were bad. We were bad. This is like 2016, I think, when I had this job. Man, we were bad. Like Carlos Boozer.
We got Brandon Ingram and I think that's the same summer we gave all that money to Luol Deng and Moscow.
Yes, so when I was working that, I know we're getting way off track here, but it's interesting. So when I was working that, obviously you work with the NBA, you can only report on like official deals, and in the what's it called, the moratorium or whatever it's called, because it's not like official. Yeah, they've agreed it. You can't actually report it. And I'm just sitting there going, you're telling me I'm going to have to write about Lil Deng getting 72 million. I'm like, come on, like what is this? And then I'm watching Durant go to the Warriors, and I'm like, oh man, this is just terrible. Yeah, it sucked. But it's weird because I actually enjoyed the Lakers as they got better. And I felt like Luke Walton. I felt sorry for him. Is what it basically. Like, I felt like he had all the tools, but he was in the worst situation. And when you look at Ingram, Ball, like Ingram started to flourish with the Pelicans, by the way. He's shown signs that he can be that guy. And he's got all the tools. And I know wrestling fans are listening to this going, but I went off on a tangent. Anyway, the Lakers are good now. And so we were kind of, I was doing that and I was getting decent numbers, but really NBA doesn't do much in UK in terms of clicks. So eventually they were like, so I was lucky, man. They got rid of, there was two of us. They got rid of the other guy, and they were like, we're going to keep you because you know some other sports. And I was like, thank God. And they were like, you like WWE, right? And I was like, yeah. And they go, well, we've got this part of the site and we haven't really given it much love. Like, why don't you just become the US guy? Just do like, you like UFC, you like, you're good at, box. I know boxing's worldwide, but like that and wrestling, so just start writing stuff about that. And then the wrestling side just took off, and we were just getting loads of clicks. Then it wasn't long before 2K came along, the gaming people, and they were offering interviews. So I got my first interview with the Big Show. I think that was at the end of 2016. That was like my first wrestling interview, but it was through 2K. And so at this point, like looking where I am now, where I actually know people in the business and sourcing stories and stuff, then I literally was just a guy who was writing up the rumors, and I was like, oh my god, like obviously I'm still like, oh my god, the Big Show, but the interview was chucked to me rather than I could go get it. Do you know what I mean? So I basically I just built that, and eventually, I think this is by 2018, they were like, just be the WWE guy. They were like, this is going well, you just be that guy, just take on that mantle, and then I could start hiring people. And I was like, how did this happen? Because there isn't like, it's not like a job I could have applied for. Do you know what I mean? There wasn't like a WWE editor or journalist anywhere. And then, I'm going to WrestleManias, I'm going to SummerSlams, and I'm, I just thought, how did this happen? And then towards the end of 2018, TalkSport, which are like, they're the biggest radio station in the country. They, one of the biggest brands basically in the UK, just approached me again, not a job I could have applied for. And they were like, we'd like to expand our website and we haven't got anyone writing about WWE. Do you want to come do that? It was a big bump in pay. And I was like, yeah, I want to do that. Of course. Why not? And then again, we went there 2018. There was about 30,000 clicks in 2018. That's what they had for total. I think they wrote about 10 wrestling articles and they got 30,000 total. And in my first year there in 2019, we did over 13 million clicks. So it was like, for them, if you can imagine from that to that, in what that means in terms of like ad revenue and stuff. So they were like, oh, wow, like, and then all of a sudden they're like, wow, there's an audience here. And then I've got a show. And man, things have just, that's literally as honestly and candidly as I've said that, like, and then this happened, then that happened. It's literally how it's gone. It's just been a nice cocktail of timing, chance, luck, and hard work, I guess.
Definitely hard work and dedication to what you're doing, but to know that it all came from your fandom of professional wrestling, that's something to strive for. It gives a little bit of inspiration to other fans.
Yeah, but when you say like strive for, that's the thing that makes me laugh. In some ways, because it's like I've reached somewhere that I could have only dreamt of, but I didn't really dream of it because I didn't know you could. Do you know what I mean? Like
That is true.
When I was growing up, like obviously Meltzer was like the guy. Everyone knew Meltzer, right? Like, and he can be hit and miss in some people's eyes now, but like, you still have to respect like the historian and like the what he's been in the business basically. And that was cool. I always thought, that's great, but I never thought I could be someone who would even be considered a peer of his. So, to be in that realm now is weird, but I've just taken all the chances that they've come and it's manifested to what it is now. And what's cool is like, you don't want to be a gatekeeper about it or anything. Like there's plenty of people who are websites basically, and I think this is universal, are just realizing the traffic you can get from wrestling, right? Like so it's not just wrestling sites now. There's sites like TalkSport, and other ones around the world that have actually realized, there's a big audience there and we can make money out of that. And so in the UK, there's like I don't want to say underneath me, with me, there are journalists doing their thing too. And it's cool because we can kind of like rise each other up almost. So from nothing to being a scene is quite something.
And it also, like, the time that you're making all these like great like career steps is a time where wrestling is really like expanding as well. Like, can you tell us like more of like in the UK how like the expansion of New Japan into US, like how you guys responded to that, as well as the introduction of AEW?
Oh man, I almost don't know where to start. So like the British scene itself has driven a large part of that and attracted that, I feel. So you'll obviously be familiar with like Pete Dunne and Tyler Bate and Trent Seven. Those guys. That's not just a gimmick. They really have been the backbone for like the last 10 years of the British wrestling scene. They've helped drive that and bring it up. And now we've got Progress Wrestling. We've got ICW in Scotland. We've got Rev Pro. There's loads that obviously TNT in Liverpool. We've got those, and it's like they were like the hotbed, right? And that's what NXT UK very successfly kind of pillaged almost. They did. So they took the best talent, and I mean, what do you think they're going to do? Sorry, OTT. That's what I was trying to rack my brain for in Ireland. They've produced some great guys. We've got a lot of these different places where people can go, and they've all risen now, and WWE has various relations with them. So the way you can get into these big companies has never been more accessible. And vice versa, these big companies want to come here and take advantage of the fandom that has been building with the companies, right? So NXT UK, of course, have done that. AEW, I've been really a direct line with them from the start in terms of talking. I've talked to Tony Khan not fairly regularly, but I have spoken to him a fair amount about the UK and things like that and their plans. And I spoke to Cody just this week about it. It's that, obviously at the moment we get it, the circumstance, right, of the travel and things like that. But they were going to fight a fest in the UK, which was a story that Tony Khan was generous enough to let me break. And they do want to be over here. There's no doubt about it. They just have to work their way in. Whereas WWE, just someone inside the company was telling me today that they are literally like trying as hard as they can to get NXT UK back up running as safely and fastly as possible. It looks like October fans are allowed back in the UK, that is, right? So they're allowed in the stadiums and stuff there. I don't know what capacity, but October's the aim. So I think NXT UK obviously on the right track. The thing with New Japan and got Impact as well, Ring of Honor, they've all got history coming over here for tours.
Yeah.
I think a lot of it is, and although the UK is not even as big as Texas, right? But in terms of a wrestling market, I think a lot of people consider it probably the second biggest in the world. And a lot of things go into that. And that's like not only the amount of people that, watch it and are into it, but the TV deals, because obviously our economy and stuff, and just the sponsors and stuff, I think that makes it more attractive, and that's why people want to be involved with it. So it's and I won't lie, the last few years, that boom and all these companies' interest, that's made in turn my life. It's helped grow me because the opportunities have been there, right? You know what I mean? So I'm forever grateful that they've decided to expand and all of that stuff. And man, the boom in the UK has done nothing but help me.
It gives you a lot more wrestling to talk about that now that it's like in the mainstream, and there's always I said this to the guys I was on Wrestle Talk recently, and I said to those guys I said to them, I was like, I thought during like this whole pandemic I was coming up with different ideas for our YouTube channel, like different shows to do, because I was like, there's not going to be much news and not going to be much wrestling going on, and then everything has happened during this pandemic. So how have you been dealing with the bombardment of a ton of news every single day?
Man, I've been just as busy, if not more, during the pandemic. Like, because there's more time for interviews. The vast majority of them I'm doing on Skype or Zoom. Like, it's almost like easier.
Yeah.
Like, not go anywhere or do anything. Like, just to wake up every day and interview people. Like this week, I've interviewed Juice Robinson, Cody Rhodes, Oscar, Dolph Ziggler, and MVP. That's 5 in a week. Like, nice. It's a lot of content. Like, do you know what I mean? It may be too much for me to even divulge. But man, it's with all stuff like that, it's a blessing, man. Because I as a fan, I love talking to the wrestlers like that above all else, probably. When you report the backstage stuff, I think that's a fine line. So I don't like tweeting spoilers per se, and I hear things, but I don't like to. I might give a nod to it on Twitter, and then people will come back and go, I don't want to like spell it out for people. So
yeah,
I'll give an example. With I got a message the day before Backlash, and it was like Edge got really hurt, and I was like, oh, like, okay, like how long? Didn't know how long he was out for or whatever, but I knew that his tricep or bicep, whichever one it was, and and I messaged Sean Ross Sapp, this is, and I said, because you want to check things. The first thing I ever want to say, I don't ever just take a message from someone at face value, because damn, and there are people that do that, but
get in trouble that way.
Yeah. So, and he was like, no, I haven't heard about that. And I was like, oh, well, you should look into it. And he did. And he ended up reporting it on his Fightful Select, although he did mention that I told him. But on Twitter, I chose not to do that because I don't want people to watch. And then, no one thanks you for spoilers. Do you know what I mean? I don't think I like things being spoiled. And because of that, by its very nature, I'm not going to do that. But I get it why someone like Sean would, or behind a paywall or something, like, there are people that want to know those things.
Yeah.
But I'm not under any pressure to kind of get clicks or stories that way, like editorially, so I choose not to. And I also knew the next night that Christian was coming back. So again, I got the message, and they were like, oh, he's been cleared to do some stuff, and I was like, damn, really? So again, like, I think WrestleVotes put out WrestleVotes, right? They put out a teaser, and then I elaborated on that teaser with another teaser, and then
I remember that was right, like one of your famous tweets, I think.
I was just like, and it was like, it wasn't very thinly veiled, to be honest. It was a little, as soon as I said peep, everyone was like, ah. So and then obviously, like, he came back, and I knew, like, I'd even been told that he was going to get punted in the head and that, and I was just watching it like, as a big Christian mark. But yeah, so like stuff like that, I choose to not. Like for that, I wrote an article the next day about the plans and what they meant, rather than ahead of time. That's just what I prefer to do. But I think in terms of, you talk about some of the stories that I've broken and stuff like that. It's nice when they happen. I'm always eternally nervous because the thing about wrestling, and especially like, so I remember getting told what the women's match was going to be for WrestleMania, which I reported, and it ended up happening, but it didn't get announced for like another 2 or 3 weeks. And the whole time I'm thinking, I hope it happens. Just because things do change. Do you know what I mean? So you don't want to be hung out to dry, and your reputation in this business kind of means everything. So, but there are some cool stuff that happens. Like I remember I reported the Riddle and Lesnar altercation at the Rumble, and I reported exactly what was said and what happened. And after that, so I actually reached out to Matt Riddle. And he didn't get back to me, and I thought, maybe he didn't like it then. I thought maybe, but I'd heard from, and I mean like talent, like not only just stuff like people would tell me. Like I was very confident it was right. And then I actually had the chance to interview Matt Riddle a few weeks ago, and he literally word for word almost like confirmed what I'd said, and it was so like justifying. Oh, like there's a big party that wants to go like on Twitter, see, but you just think, nah, like it's not gonna. That won't help anyone. So
no.
I feel like you just have to let the work speak for itself. And thus far, I think I've accrued a fair amount of equity. Like I haven't just said any random shit. So long may that continue. Let that be my mantra. Don't say random shit.
Don't say random shit. I'm gonna make that one of the tags for this video. No.
Have you seen that though with some journalists, and they're like, I've heard this is going to happen, and you're like the rumors fan, that they're the ones that do me the most. Like, and I hate to like use him as a reference, but like Brad Shepard, someone like that, and they're just like complete chances. And I just think I hate it when there's a section of wrestling fans that get invested in what they say, and I just think, man, just report like the news and get this. I like to get it from the horse's mouth, which is why interviewing superstars is the best, man.
Yeah, absolutely, because you're not gonna get any type. You're gonna get from their perspective, and it's not gonna be from a third party or anything like that. So, and Brad Shepard, he's like exactly. No words is needed. But what would you say is like one of the biggest things that you have experienced since your time as being like talking about professional wrestling on like a professional platform and like being paid in the gig?
Oh, yeah, I mean, sometimes it's surreal when I come away from the studio and we've just chatted about wrestling, and we've had like, I don't know, like the last episode, I think we had Drew McIntyre on for like half an hour. And then I'm kind of spitting wrestling with him, and then I'm talking to people, and I'm like, people are tuning in to hear what I think, or like even on Twitter sometimes, and and they'll be like, Alex, what do you think about this? Or and I'll think to myself, it's quite wild that people care what I think. But it's cool, and that's why like my corner of wrestling Twitter, as it were, I like to keep it pretty positive, and everyone you have to, I want to respect their opinions, and you'd hope that. I would hate to perpetuate the toxic environment that a lot of wrestling Twitter can be. So I feel like maybe that's why some people do gravitate towards me, not necessarily to hear what I think, but because they realise they will get hurt. Do you see what I mean? Like it's a two-way street. I respect what you have to say. There's nothing that makes me any more special than anyone else. It's just cool that we can all talk about wrestling, because it is the most subjective thing you could ever imagine. Like with real sport, there's no denying that Kobe Bryant was like a scoring machine. Nobody could stand for it and say that objectively. Like, because I could just go, well, he was, because you could go bang, 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 right? But with wrestling, a lot of what you say, is like, this person's great, and they'll go, well, he's won this, he's won that. Well, he was booked to do so. Yeah, but he can do this and he can do that. Oh yeah, but this guy tells great stories, and it's like, you go back and forth forever on what people like. The criteria changes for everyone. So I feel that's one of the most important things about gaining an audience, or talking to the wrestling community, is just making them feel like their opinion matters, because it does. Everyone's does.
Yeah, and I think that's like something that gets like very, very overshadowed by everyone's opinion, because everyone has a nature in professional wrestling, especially us as fans, to kind of present our opinions as the fact. This was a great match. Like, and I am raising my hand as the first person that does that. I do it myself from time to time, and I can acknowledge that and look back on it like, no, it could be a bad match to somebody else, but it's something that we do a lot in this community.
I think it's fine though to have that strong opinion. You should have strong opinions.
Yeah.
If you think a match is great, then that's fine. Why Why would we not? There's no reason to feel bad about that. I think it's different when people are like belittling other people's opinions. That's different. Like that's when they're like for instance, I might tweet, I think Charlotte Flair is the greatest women's worker in the world. Bang, and then my replies are like, because you've got all of these different fans of people that think somehow by saying that you're attacking them. They're like, well, how could you say that? So you know what I mean? Like that's where it all gets a bit distorted. But for me, I feel like everyone's entitled to their opinion, and this just goes to general life. Like, do what makes you happy, but not at the expense of others. That's for me.
Absolutely. So kind of falling a little bit into that type of story, being in the UK wrestling scene, how do you think they are, we're still dealing with the pandemic, but how do you think they're dealing with the whole entire speaking out movement?
I mean, there's been some strides made in terms of some companies that have been set up to try and I want to say aid the industry, because you can't mitigate it and you can't run it per se. That'd be like unionizing. Like, realistically, I just don't think that's going to happen, nor would that be something that could happen this quick. So I think there are different bodies. I saw one today that has started where they're going to liaise with different companies, and there's different protocols that you have to go through to make sure that bullying isn't happening, or I don't know, for instance, like if someone has a record of something, sexual or otherwise, you're vetted and things like that. And because there just seems to be too many. There's a lot of sexual misconduct in the UK, or that has been accused of, but it's bullying as well, and there just seems to be a lot of people in power positions taking advantage of that, and I think that is where the UK are addressing it the most. Of course, it's hard at the moment because no one's really running shows or doing training, so it's hard to say what tangible differences there are. That will come to the fore the more we return to normality, right? But at the moment, at least the steps are being implemented. And I know a lot of companies and a lot of training schools are very serious about doing that and adhering to that and cleaning up the mess. So for me, I'm just happy that the proverbial trash is being taken out and we can begin to rebuild from here.
Absolutely. I think that they have to clean up all the mess and get the wrong people out of this business. That's how we're going to move forward for sure. So finally, I like to end things off with a heel like question. So I ask every single guest that I have on here, who is your favorite heel that you've ever seen in professional wrestling? And if it's a different person, what is the greatest heel moment you ever remember in professional wrestling?
Greatest heel moment. You know what? I'll start off with the greatest heel because I hated him the most. And that is Triple H. I hated that man. I hated him with a passion. I've told him that as well. I've told him I hated you, man. So I mean, I don't think I've made a secret of this. If anyone who follows me, I'm a huge Rock Mark. He's the guy who got me into wrestling. So it makes sense that around the 2000 mark, if I loved The Rock, then I hated Triple H.
Goes hand in hand.
Yeah, it does. It's nature. And I think the thing with Triple H that I hated the most, so as I've grown older, I've appreciated what a tremendous worker he is, and and a talent and all of that stuff. So, if anything, I'm sure he's grateful that I hated him because that's what he wanted. But
yeah.
When I was a kid, I was like, he's not even that good. I was like, and I was, he's just with Stephanie, and he's making up all his own rules. This sucks. I hated it. And even though now, like, if I was to watch that same thing now, I'd see totally different lens, and I'd be like, oh, this is good booking. Back then, I was like, I hate it. So yeah, I thought, and one thing that's often understated. So we haven't had superstars as big as Austin and Rock since then. But a lot of that goes into having great foils, and Triple H was a phenomenal foil for The Rock. So I class him as probably my favourite. My favourite heel thing is a hard one. There's lots of great, like, little nuances and moments. But the thing is, as you get older, as great as they are, a lot of them you see coming. So, for instance, I saw I saw the Kevin Owens turn on Chris Jericho at the Festival of Friendship coming, not in its precise capacity though. So I knew there'd be a turn somewhere, but we didn't know how or when, and that was masterfully played out. That one, really well done. But I'm trying to think of one where I was generally left like, oh, like I didn't want that to happen, or because they're always the best ones where you're left genuinely upset, like, oh, why did you do that? And man, like I tell you what, as well, on a totally unrelated level, I thought, unsurprisingly, The Rock's Hollywood stint as a heel was just some of the most entertaining stuff I've ever seen.
The Toronto promo is one of the greatest pieces of business I have ever seen.
Hey, he said Toronto.
It's so great. We really are kindred souls. I was a huge Rock fan, a huge Kobe fan. I hated Triple H. I even said, I was like, even when Triple H was a babyface when he was in DX, China helped him beat Rock in the ladder match at SummerSlam 98. Even when he was a babyface, he was a heel. Like, come on. So I am totally 100% with you. So finally, tell the great people watching where they can find you, Talk Wrestling, everything else, your social media. Tell them what you got going on.
Yeah, man. So my articles, as I mentioned, been a busy boy this week. You'll find all of that work at talksport.com/wrestling. I post all of the good bits and the gateways to that on my Twitter at AlexM_Talksport. You'll hear me on the radio. So actually, the show is usually on Sundays, but this week we're on Monday at 6 p.m. till 8 p.m. UK time. UFC Fight Island's got us moving around all over the shop. And yeah, that's pretty much where you'll catch me on the radio, online, and on Twitter. I have Instagram, but unless you want to look at my kids, I wouldn't bother. Yeah,
that's what I use my Instagram for. I love it. I love to see it. Thank you so much for being on the show, good brother. I will definitely be in contact with you some more, as I just got a position as a contributor for Sportskeeda. So I need to pick your brain on how to write about this business, good brother.
Let me tell you something about that. Sportskeeda's got a good family of people these days. Yeah. Have you spoken to many of the writers there?
I've spoken to Raju. I've spoken to Gary a little bit. Just a few people so far. Kevin. So there's a couple of people that are really good. Tom. We just had Tom Collingwood on Tru Heel Heat, so we gotta shout out him.
Yeah, shout out Tom. Tom's a guy I've helped come along in the business a little bit. Like I tried to get him some contacts with WWE to shows. So I actually met up with Tom at Cardiff, NXT UK Cardiff. So that was cool. Gary's a great guy. One of the genuinely nicest guys you could hope to meet. And he's a hard worker. So I've got a lot of time for Gary. Steph Chase is one of the best female wrestling journalists in the world, in my opinion. Also works for Sportskeeda. Yeah, I mean, I'm actually meant to be thinking of some. I write for Sportskeeda occasionally, as a contributor, I think they call it. So yeah, I need to think of some stuff, to be honest. Yeah, get in touch with those guys, man, because the Sportskeeda family, they've done a real good job of rebuilding a name that wasn't so favourable for a few years ago. It was just full of rumours and rubbish, really. They've done a great job of rebuilding. And the fact that you're a part of that, man, it tells me good things about you. So congratulations and good luck.
Thank you, good brother, and thank you once again for coming on Tru Heels BTR. So you guys watching at home, push that like button, show your support to this video, push the subscribe button and the bell to stay notified for all the great content right here on Tru Heel Heat. For Alex McCarthy, it is me, your Tru Heel Phenom SP3. This has been Tru Heels BTR, signing off until next time.